What made you feel like the cooperative structure was the right fit for what you wanted to build?
I went to school with the private equity guys, and I know who they are. I know what they do. And so one thing was certain, we never wanted to bring that into our company, right? So then how do we build a company that has the scale and the size and the capability of competing with these DSOs while at the same time remaining doctor-owned, doctor-led? And so I think that's really where we landed on the cooperative structure.
I want to be a pediatric dentist. I want to own my own practice. I need help with the business part. Is that something that Tim would be interested in, something that we could do together? We knew that if we were going to do this together and build something really special, it wasn't going to just be one practice. It was going to be something big. We ended up selling everything we owned, moving to Alaska in an RV. Lived in Alaska for 2 years while I did my residency. And that really shaped, I think, a lot of Alcan and our principles and my philosophy.
Welcome back to The Doers, the podcast where we dive into the real stories of building, struggling, and thriving in dentistry. I'm your host, Dan Hull, and we explore in each episode the struggles, the victories, and the lessons learned from the leaders in the trenches, building those practices and shaping the future of dentistry. Today, I'm joined by Alex and Tim Otto, the duo behind Alcan Dental Cooperative. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome to the show, Tim and Alex. Let's go back to the beginning and dive in here. When you first started talking about building something like Alcan, what was it that triggered you and saw the need for this in the marketplace?
So I practiced as a general dentist for 5 years. During that time, I worked in pediatric offices, and I was really getting to the point where clinically I felt like I was ready to own my own practice, but the business part of dentistry isn't something that you learn in dental school. So I'd always come home, talk to Tim, who, has got an MBA, degrees in finance and management, talk to him about the things that were going on in the practices that I was working at. And, we just had a lot of conversations about it. And I finally got to the point where, I'm ready. I want to go back to residency. I want to be a pediatric dentist. I want to own my own practice. But, obviously I need help with the business part. Is that something that Tim would be interested in, doing with me, something that we could do together? So yeah, I literally came home one day. I had made a PowerPoint presentation. It was actually Prezi back then, which is like not around anymore.
Oh, I remember Prezi.
Remember Prezi? Yeah. I made him like
coolest thing at the time.
It was like Zoom. Yes. And yeah, I made him a very elaborate Prezi, and I poured him a large drink, and I told him he had to sit down and listen to the whole presentation before he could talk. And so yeah, just laid it out there. I want to go back. We could build something really cool together. We both had great jobs. We had a beautiful house. So the ask of quitting my job, potentially him quitting his job, going back to residency, it's a huge deal. And so gave him the presentation. He agreed at the end, but we knew that if we were going to do this together and build something really special, it wasn't going to just be one practice. It was going to be something big, be a group practice. And I don't think that we knew exactly what that meant at the time, but over the years, as Tim was learning the business of dentistry and we got into it, we realized that we had created something really special that we could grow, just internally for our own brand, but then also to help other practices. And so, yeah, we ended up selling everything we owned, moving to Alaska in an RV, lived in Alaska for 2 years while I did my residency. And that really shaped, I think, a lot of Alcan and our principles and my philosophy of care and, the kind of practice that we wanted to build and the kind of community that we wanted to have. And so Tim spent that whole time when I was in residency, studying dentistry, studying the business of dentistry, figuring out where we were going to start our first location, what that looked like. That was when we actually first started having conversations with you guys at CareStag. We were living in Alaska. And
yeah, I think talked to Nicole first in 18.
Yeah.
So way back when.
Oh yeah, that was back in the early days.
Early days.
Exactly.
So as you're taking this journey and you're doing your Prezi, what made you feel like the cooperative structure was the right fit for what you wanted to build?
God, that did not come until far down the road. So when we first started this thing, what I said is I want to have complete control over everything. I want Alex to have complete clinical control over everything that we do, and we want to own 100% of the offices that we're involved with. And what I quickly learned was there was a lot of people that were out there struggling who didn't have the kind of partnership and the kind of the synergies that we do. And they were coming to us going, well, hey, you guys are doing great. How can we do that? Right? Can you help us? And, at first it's no, sorry, we're a closed loop system, right? We do this for our practices and nobody else's. And then it kind of turned into well, how could we help these friends? How could we help these other providers like Alex that are amazing clinicians and really want to do good for the community, want to preserve the field of pediatric dentistry, but don't have somebody like meet and don't have the partnership again. And so we started looking at different models that we could then apply what we had learned and the systems and the processes that we had created for our own practices and kind of democratize those. So a lot of conversations, a lot of research, taking a look at industry trends, seeing what was going on in the DSO landscape, seeing what private equity was doing. I mean, I always joke that I went to school with the private equity guys and I know who they are.
Sure.
And I know what they do. And so one thing was certain, we never wanted to bring that into our company, right? So then how do we build a company that has the scale and the size and the capability of competing with these DSOs while at the same time remaining doctor-owned, doctor-led? And so I think that's really where we landed on the cooperative structure.
Yeah, and that took like 5 years of figuring that out internally and building our own practices, testing out all the systems that we had in place within Kids Tooth Team, our personal brand of practices. And so, we opened our first location in 2020, have added an additional Kids Tooth Team every year since then. And then 2 years ago is when we sort of released Alcan, the cooperative model, where we would help, other practices manage their pediatric dental practice without them, having to sell out to us or be, sort of be the antithesis of a DSO, where they get the support that they need without having to sell, equity if they don't want in their practices. And so that's kind of where the cooperative model came, is that they get those economies of scale, they get all the support that they need, but they still get to be the owners of their practice, the leader of their team. And that was really, just being really involved in organized industry and seeing the struggle with my friends. Like they don't want to sell out to a DSO, but they're having a really hard time going at it alone. And their work-life balance is sacrificing. They're spending way too much money on supplies and materials and HR and staffing. And so they just don't know how to make their business as successful as it could be. And so, just again, people coming to us and so that's really, we wanted to help these people stay independent because that's what the community needs, is like providers and leaders of their dental practices that really care about their patients and the community that they're serving.
That was the thing too, just to add to that, it is really unique. And I was in very large corporations before coming into the field of dentistry, Fortune 150 companies, 30,000 employees, and creating something that has more than just two people at the head of the the organization, right? Where now we have this amazing cohort of doctors that we can rely on. Some people are really good at frenectomies. Some doctors practice this or practice that, and it's this shared pool of knowledge that we now have between the entire organization that has really kind of poured rocket fuel onto the growth and allowed us to remain independent. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of see that flourish and grow.
Interesting. So it just organically came about, right? You started with this idea that came out of the Prezi, right? And then just grew into Alcan after people were just organically coming to you and saying, hey, I want to do the same thing, but I'm not quite sure how. Yeah. So with that being said, as you're growing Alcan, which sounds like it's kind of starting now, right? Got some years under your belt and the idea has shifted. What are some of the early challenges you've experienced just getting that off the ground?
I mean, anytime you come up with a new or novel model in a way of doing business in an industry that is definitely, I don't want to say stodgy, but I'll say stodgy because it's the dental industry, right?
The ways.
Set in your ways, fear of change. That's an uphill battle to start, right? And so like betting it all on black and saying, at the end of the day, we believe in this. This is the right thing to do, and we're going to invest in this and make that happen and kind of be the driving force behind that change. That's a huge leap of faith, And Alex always joked like, "Hey, we have another practice, but they're making less money." And it's like, well, technically that's not true, but yes, cash flow wise, we've reinvested everything because if you build it, they will come type of situation.
Okay.
A huge leap of faith when it comes to that.
Yeah, just seeing everything and the systems that we've built. And like Tim was mentioning last night, just like these systems that we built, they're way too big for what we have now, but we know that we built them in advance of like what is coming. So having all these enterprise level kind of systems in the practices has been a tremendous amount of investment from us, but we know it's going to benefit not only our practices, but everyone that joins Alcan. And for me too, it's just like that, the perception and having people really understand that we're not a DSO, because I think like models like ours exist and people are told, they're doctor owned or doctor led, but they're not actually. And so I think that people have just heard the story so many times from DSOs that when we come out with something different, people just don't believe that, what you're doing is actually what you're saying you're doing. So now that we've had these other practices join Alcan and really see what we're all about, I think that that's kind of been the rocket fuel that Tim's talking about now. It's like people see, oh, we're honest and this is actually what we're trying to do and allow you to remain independent and just help you. And so now that we have enough practices that have joined Alcan that can share those stories, I think that was like the biggest hurdle at the beginning, is like really people trusting that what we're saying was true too.
Yeah.
So you've had some early wins that we're on the right course here, right? To validate what you're doing in the space. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that I see a lot when I'm talking to leaders is they're building businesses, new platforms. There's this moment where they feel like everything's on the line.
Yeah.
Right?
Every day?
Every day, all the time.
So I wake up in the morning and I go to sleep at night.
So
Does that ever stop us?
can you share like a moment where you had that, right? Where it's one of those monumental challenges where you're sitting there, it's all on the line as you're building Alcan.
Yeah, I think if you're doing it correctly, that's always the case, right? Because once you've reached a point of complacency, then why are you doing it still, right? Like let somebody else take over and continue to drive it and continue to take the risks, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, every single thing that we've done, I look back and we bought our second practice less than 9 months after we opened our first one. And looking back now, I go, that's crazy. Like under no circumstances, knowing what I know today about how difficult it is to run a multi-location pediatric group practice, would I have bought a second location 9 months after opening our first location? That's insanity. But we did it and we figured it out, right? So taking risks like that, and again, going back to that leap of faith, right? And knowing that ultimately this is the right thing to do. And we're doing it for a cause, right? Early on, when we first started talking about this, and I have friends in the PE industry, and I talked to them and they said, yeah, Tim, you want 10 million and let's go slam 20 or 30 of these together and cash out in 5 years? We're with you. Like, let's ride. And Alex and I spent a night thinking about it, and we go, can't do it. Just not happening. So being a mission-driven organization makes that risk feel less of an existential threat and more of a fuel to the fire.
Is that what helps you navigate situations like that? Is the mission-driven approach you're taking?
Yeah, and to help us pick like what practices we want to join a cooperative. Like not everyone that's interviewed with us or that we've had spoken to is like a right fit for it. And so being able to pick the groups that also like share those values with us, they want to do better for their community. They want to do better for the kids that they serve. And, they're a team and they're employees. And so that's helped us drive like who's going to join the cooperative and be a part of this group with us, because we want this to be a community of people who are like-minded and trying to elevate pediatric dentistry and elevate the profession. And so any of those moments where we're like, is this worth the risk? We know the answer because these people share our same values.
Yeah, that's a cool approach. Yeah. So we touched a little bit on this just a moment ago. So I talked to a lot of dentists, and a lot of them state that they weren't prepared for that business side of dentistry, right? They wanted it for the care of the people, for oral health, especially in pediatrics. It seems really important. And there's a steep learning curve on that business side. So how is it that Alcan is helping those dentists shorten that curve, or maybe just removing the burden altogether?
I think that the second one, the latter, is probably more accurate because everybody makes fun of dentists for not knowing how to balance a checkbook. That's the joke you always hear, right? And it's like, well, that's kind of funny because in all my years at business school, they never once taught me how to clean teeth. Like the specialization in our economy works for a reason, right? And doctors shouldn't have spent another 4 years on top of their 4 years of postgraduate education learning how to run a business, right? Their skill and competencies lie in providing amazing patient care and enriching people's lives through the care that they provide. So taking that and dividing strengths based on where they lie, right, and core competencies where they lie, Alcan can now help run the administrative and even sometimes bureaucratic side of the business, while the doctors can guide the clinical decisions.
And it's, when I give lectures on this, I always tell dentists, like, everyone is smart enough. You were all smart enough to learn all of this. It's just like, at what expense? Like, how many years do you want to spend like perfecting? Or like, how much money do you want to spend on these consultants that come in and like teach you how to do something and then leave and don't actually have like, they don't have any interest in like you actually succeeding and doing well. They're just going to give you like a binder full of information. Yeah. It's just like, what expense do you want to learn this? And even after you learn it, are you going to be able to do it as well as someone who's got an MBA and all these skills and is able to lead these teams, understands accounting, understands all these things that like, I just don't understand as a dentist. I was not taught. Took no business classes whatsoever. So to have someone that you trust coming in and helping you and guiding you in that process and then taking over a lot of those burdens is really what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think you put it well earlier too. I mean, it's a work-life balance, and then time's finite, right? There's only so much you can invest, and what part of the business are you going to put it into? Caring for the patients, or like you said, balancing the checkbook. If you can pass that off to an expert, right? Really well put. So, as you sign on a new member, right? They join Alcan. What do you guys do to guide them through that change, right? Whether it's implementing new tech, a new training platform, processes, which it sounds like you've built a lot of this out, right? It sounds like you're built for the future, but how do you get them to adopt that?
Well, change is the easiest thing in the world, right? Everybody loves change, especially in the dental practice.
I'm very excited to get
very excited about
new systems.
Yeah, that's, it's a challenge. I was involved in very, very large scale change implementation at companies like Aero Electronics, Phoenix Contact, and really learned early on in my career how important change management is. And so the first thing we always say is, like, it's not easy. Like, no matter what, even as easy as we have made it, as much experience as we have doing it, change is not easy. Driving organizational change, cultural change especially, is so difficult. Rewiring the mindset of so many of these, not just dentists, but the actual people providing the care for the dentist, which is the dental assistants, the hygienist, the front desk, the treatment coordinator, and converting the mentality that dentistry is a job and turning it into the mentality of dentistry as a career, right? Once you have that team culture then behind you, you're unstoppable. Then it's just a matter of, okay, here's the systems that we're going to use to achieve that mission-driven purpose that we all have, right? So in our organization and our individual practices now, if I was to go in tomorrow and say, hey, we're changing everything, the team would go, okay, this is what we do. That's our culture, right? We're constantly trying to, Alex is implementing Overjet at all the practices now. She's working with Heidi AI to try and figure out how to get voice transcription to do her clinical notes. So we're constantly evolving, constantly changing. And if you have that culture in place, it becomes easy. But if you don't have that culture, you're ice skating uphill from square one. So that's really what we focus on going into it. Sure, we have project management, and we've got Gantt charts laid out and the 6-month onboarding plan. That all means nothing if the team is behind you. So focusing on the team first, creating the culture.
And I think, and that's one of the first things that we do when a new practice onboards, like they get to meet us and see us in person. And, I make it clear that every system that we put in place is something that I've tested out in our personal practices. We don't, just like throw Overjet everywhere. It took me months of like figuring out exactly, what the workflow is going to be, how we're going to present this to patients, like how we're going to use this platform. To be able to give the team the workflows to do that. And so then we, roll it out at one practice, then we roll it out at a couple practices, and then we roll it out to Alcan at large. And so everything's been tested by someone who's been in the chair, knows the struggles, knows like exactly what you need to do. And again, we're not going in and, changing everything the first day. It's like a very, organized way of implementing this change in the new technology, because it can be overwhelming for some people, even if they want to, they know it's going to be good. And at the end, like it's going to make their life a lot easier. So we like building those small wins of trust, like that make their life easier in every new change. Then by the time you get to the big change, like, implementing CareStack and changing their practice management software, then it's not so scary because they've seen, how easy we've made every other like smaller transition. So yeah, it's been, when CareStack goes live at our new offices, like we're physically there helping them, making sure that the team understands how to use it. So it's not like we're doing it from afar. We're like literally in the building with them, making sure everyone has everything they need and they know how to use the system.
Yeah. I love the approach. Yeah. Just putting it out there from the beginning. It's not going to be easy, but we'll be there to support you. And the time you must put into validating all this, right? Like that's time that they can now spend just treating patients because they don't have to sit and vet all these solutions.
Totally. Yep.
It's amazing. So this really stands out, this culture and driving the mission, driving this whole process over at Alcan. So could you guys just describe your leadership styles and, how they complement one another to your members?
Yeah, right. It's an interesting question. I don't know that we've ever been asked that before.
And so my undergrad degree was in leadership. So that's like I studied, just all like different leadership styles. I'm definitely like a servant leader. And I think most dentists like would classify themselves in that category. And I feel like I'm here to serve my patients. I'm here to serve my team. And I feel like if I serve my team well, they serve my patients well. So we definitely have like a people first culture in our practices. And, like I said, I do everything that I'm asking someone else to do. I've implemented this. I've done the change. I'm chairside 4 or 5 days a week still. So like I'm still a dentist. So these other dentists that join the practice, I'm not just like giving you things to do that I haven't actually done myself. And I think people see how much we care, like we, our outreach program, or a nonprofit, like how much we actually care about our community. So I think everything that we've done, we live those values in everything that we're involved in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, you talk about culture for me. I wrote my master's thesis on a culture, right? And got to experience both positive and negative culture in large organizations in the US and globally. And so for me, it was always, I wanted to create a culture that uplifted the team members and empowered the team members versus the autocratic top-down approach that we know from 100 years of management theory now simply does not work. So we've kind of grown our organization and built it based around that. And then I always focus though on having the rigorous follow-up and the rigorous, detail-driven culture that says, okay, you can tell somebody to do it, but you also have to verify that it was done, right? So there's management and there's supervision, and both are required for a successful organization, because the one thing we hear so often is dentists will say, man, I'm beating my head up against the wall. I tell them to do something, and then 2 weeks later, they're not doing it. And I always ask, okay, well, what are you using to measure the progress? Are you rewarding them they've done it, right? And 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later, 2 months later, how are you measuring and maintaining that system to make sure that those things are being done? And the answer is, well, no. That's also why consultants don't work. I could give you our playbook for Alcan and give you all the systems, all the processes, give you the logins to everything, right?
Implementing it.
You're not going to be any more successful than the next dentist. So it's actually having skin in the game and making sure that somebody is in there at the Alcan level, constantly monitoring and measuring and course correcting, right, to make sure that these things are being done the way that they need to be done in order to drive that positive change.
Well, how do you balance that then? Because like you just said a moment ago, we don't want it to come top down, right? And you got the member who's in between that. It sounds like you're trying to coach them along, teach them how to do it so they can manage it internally themselves. But is there ever a point where you got to step in as well too as Alcan to help them?
Yeah, it's a great question, but we don't. We like to take the dentist out of the equation, right? So so we empower the office managers. We empower what we call the director of first impressions, right? The front desk manager, to make these decisions and to help monitor those, right? And so it's corporate speak, dotted line matrix type organization from a org chart structure, but really we're allowing those decisions. We're decentralizing that and enabling the location with the tools and the process that they need to monitor that change. And then we're obviously sitting there from mothership, and we've got the dials, green, yellow, red, saying, okay, here's an area that we need to tweak. Here's where this office manager needs our support in maybe driving this change.
Okay, so you're watching behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Yes.
To make sure that they're succeeding.
When meeting with them constantly.
Okay.
Weekly meetings and coaching and training and constantly providing the why for what we're doing. Right.
Because I think that was one of the biggest surprises to me about, owning a dental practice, is just how much, I guess, to your point, like supervision or, just checking in on people. So like who's, even though you're a dentist, you have your one location, like who's double checking your office managers doing their checklist, who's double checking that the, front desk, that your RDAs, even your marketing team, all these other external companies that you're using, you still have to be checking in on them. You still have to make sure that they're doing the things that they're saying that they're doing. And that alone is a full-time job. And so it's like how you, as a single location dentist practice owner, don't have the time to make sure that this checklist was done and then double check that checklist. And so kind of taking that out of their hands of we're double checking your office manager for you. We're double checking first impressions, that these reports were run correctly, that people are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. Because it's too much. You can't see patients all day, finish all your notes, do all this. And then on top of that, spend 2 or 3 hours making sure that all these reports were run correctly. And
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you put it well. I mean, they could go get their MBA, right? You said these dentists are smart enough. You guys are highly educated. But then there's the time factor, right? They know what they're needing to track, but you also have to see your patients. That balance just probably wouldn't be there. So you guys are delivering that for them to be that check and balance for the business.
And there's always, scale at the end of the day. It's especially in today's economy, scale is everything, right? So you have to get to that point, because otherwise these DSOs are going to, I speak at them negatively. There's some good DSOs out there that are doing the right thing, and there's some doctors that have profited off of them, and been rewarded for a lifetime worth of work. I'm not disparaging that, but when it comes to guiding the industry moving forward, there's some aspects of that need to change for sure.
Well, that kind of rolls into my next question. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. So I see dentistry evolving pretty quickly. There's a lot of changes happening. I mean, you mentioned DSOs. We got technology in there. There's workforce challenges at the moment that have been in place for a little bit of time. What's the most significant change you all have seen in the past 5 to 10 years in dentistry?
For me, the rate of change, or the thing that's driving the rate of change the most right now, is technology. Yeah. And it's kind of like you look back at what spreadsheets did to business in general, right? And accounting and ledgers, and that really allowed the first explosion of business and mergers and acquisitions. And now we have that same thing happening in the dental industry when it comes to technology, right? So fully integrated practice management systems, fully integrated patient engagement systems. AI is poised to make what could potentially be a industry-changing impact, right? And so I think the adoption of these technologies has allowed practices to go from maybe servicing 2,000 patients to servicing 4,000 to 5,000 patients, right? Now, that's a zero-sum game in a lot of cases, where if this practice adopts technology over here on this side of town and this practice does not, there's a finite number of patients in that town. There's 5,000 patients in that town. Well, they used to split them 50-50. Now this practice has 4,000 patients. This one has 1,000 patients, and they're going to die. They're going to wither on the vine, right? So I do think that change we're going to see that manifest itself over the next 5 to 10 years in the dental industry. Used to be dentistry was a sure bet, like next to death and taxes, dentists will succeed in their own private practice. I think we'll start to see a lot of practices that don't adopt that change and that evolving technology start to fail and go out of business.
We give lectures to dental students too. And I think that's what you're taught in dental school. Like, you will, start your own practice. You're going to be fine. No one's ever gone bankrupt. And that's a lie. Like, we bought practices that were going to go bankrupt if they didn't sell. But they don't, the person selling it doesn't say like, my business failed. They just say, I sold my practice, and so you don't hear about maybe these stories of people not doing as well. Yeah. And so, I think that's just going to be exponential with people, because if I have AI helping me detect radiographs and help me educate my parents, and we have AI on our phone system, making sure that our, phone, all the conversations are exceptional. And, you have all of these systems in place to make our practice wonderful. Then the person down the street who doesn't have any of this technology, it's just going to be really hard for them to compete with groups like ours.
Yeah, for sure.
So you kind of answered my next question. That's what I was going to say. How are you trying to stay ahead of the curve? And it just sounds like you're becoming an early adopter. You're vetting all these solutions.
Yep.
So you can be out ahead of it.
Yeah. I mean,
is that a fair statement?
Really become kind of the AI face of AI in pediatric dentistry, because we've adopted these platforms. We helped to develop them. We've developed our own. We're in the process of developing our own. So it has to be done. And the great thing is that Alex, as a clinician, gets to adopt these things and utilize them firsthand. So some of the things that I thought they might be useful for turned out to not be useful, but then she'll discover secondary use for them. Like Overjet, you were talking about that.
Or even just, Overjet's great for the radiographs and helping diagnose decay. And especially when you have newer associate doctors that are in to really verify that, we're not missing anything, that we're providing the best care. So we initially started with that, but then I realized that they have like what they call enterprise analytics. And so it really helps me to track my associates, their treatment planning rates, their case acceptance rates. And so again, when we have, dozens of practices, I can look at any practice and individual location, see how well they're doing compared to the doctors within their own practice, compared to our company as a whole, and really help guide those doctors if their case acceptance rates are really low. Like, do we need to do some verbal skills coaching on like how we're presenting our treatment plans? If they're only diagnosing 10% of the decay that Overjet is finding, do we need to have a conversation about like why we're not telling these parents or diagnosing the decay?
Or if they're diagnosing 90%.
Or they're doing 90%. Yeah, are they
like
too
also
much? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that goes both ways, but it just really allows you to provide metrics and numbers to these things, because talking doctors can be, a little, touchy when you offer suggestions or room for improvements. If you can come back with numbers and say like, hey, this is just like, these are what the numbers are showing. Let's talk about this. Why do you think, why are we here? This is our standard is, that we're at 70% or whatever it is. So it's allowed me to have those conversations and kind of just take, and just be really objective and take any emotion kind of out of it, which has been nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's great pearl of wisdom to look at your tech from a different perspective, right? It might be one use case over here, but maybe it applies in the clinical setting as well too, to just really maximize that investment.
Yeah.
So quick question, what do you see as the future of private dentistry and cooperatives as we continue to navigate this change? Where do you think it's going to land and look like in the future?
Yeah, it's a good, I mean, now you're asking me to look at my crystal ball and shake the ball and, you know, I don't see private dentistry going anywhere. I think there's some doom and gloom out there saying that private dentistry is dead, and I don't believe that at all. I think there's still a place in this world for clinicians to provide great care in communities, especially in the smaller communities, right? That need these family dentists. I love that model. I think in bigger cities, right? Austin, Boston, San Antonio, Chicago, it's almost impossible to survive or to open as a private practitioner anymore. So I think you're going to see pockets of geographical areas where DSOs dominate. 60, 70, 80% of the market share. Yes, Brian Kalea at Dykema, he believes that it will be 60 to 70% DSO led by 2030. I don't know if it's going to be that high, but certainly look at how the landscape has changed between 1990, even 2000 and today. So there is a very obvious trend. And once that trend has the capital behind it and the expertise behind it, you're not going to stop it. It's just a matter of, is that trend going to accelerate? Is the curve going to be linear, or is it going to flatten out? So
I speak for the ADA, and so we give lectures to dental students on like what is the future of dentistry, and a lot of the metrics from the ADA are saying like the small group practice is kind of like the model of the future. People, you know, they want to share those responsibilities, they want to share the administrative duties and burdens. So, you know, I think having the ability to like be in a group of some kind, there's a lot of like work-life balance benefits, just overhead costs. And so, you know, and that's a lot of what we do with the smaller group practices too, is like helping them manage their locations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's, you know, as a young, you know, well, I'm not that young, but younger dentist, I was like, not even a new dentist anymore, but, you know, like that was something that was really appealing to me of like joining these groups. Is like, I don't have to be on call every single day, or, you know, I can, you know, turn my phone off when I get home. And so I think that there's a lot of benefit of being in group settings like that too.
So it sounds like what you're saying here, and Tim, it sounds like you're a big econ guy. Like they're all filling a void in the open marketplace here.
Yep.
And serving a patient in maybe just a different way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Depending on what the needs are. Yep. When you look at balancing clinical care and the business side of dentistry, it's not a small feat, right? How do you approach that balance across your member practices?
It's funny because we're uncompromising on the fact that clinical gets the final say. So there's a lot of stuff that I look at as a businessman, and I would immediately cut that, right? I'd whack it right out of the budget and go, Matt, we're not doing that anymore. And she'll look at me and be like, yeah, we are. I'd be like, okay, I guess we're doing that, right? So I think that is very important because the goals of private investment and the goals of the capitalistic economy, as great as it is, sometimes are not always in alignment with the goals of the patient at the end of the day. And so I think having that clinical leadership and having clinical leadership have the final say versus just a say in the matter is what differentiates any doctor-led group from an investment-led group. I think that distinction is really super important to make. So yeah, obviously the other cool thing is that we're in a cohort, right? So Alex relies on other clinicians in the group to answer questions on things she might not be as proficient with. Cleft palate, right? We have a expert that's potentially joining Alcan who's at the forefront of cleft palate operations. So we have this massive cohort now to pull from in terms of clinical autonomy, but also clinical expertise and excellence. And I think that is really powerful.
Yeah, like I'm not willing to put, you can always buy cheaper crowns or cheaper dental cement or whatever. And people do that, and then it's a poor outcome for your patients. And so I'm just unwilling to put like bad materials or things that aren't like the best top line in kids' mouths, because that's what I would want for our children. Like I don't want. And so why, instead of buying cheap materials from somewhere else, why don't we just negotiate a great price on the best materials that there are for our cooperative? And so being able to be able to use the best highest end materials, equipment, everything, That's just, something I'm not willing to compromise on. And so, but being in a cooperative, we have that buying power that other groups in our practices can benefit from. So I think that's one of the coolest things that we can do is the best that there is.
Yeah.
Not have to compromise on it.
You brought up an interesting point. I would be curious to see, like, do you have any data that would show, since you pulled off a lot of that, administrative burden off of them, have they skilled up any on the clinical side? Because it sounds like you're pulling from this talent pool here. Yeah. And do you see them spending more time on continuing education and like pilot? Is that,
for sure.
Do you have data showing that?
Yeah, and a lot of it, like we offer internally, like what is it that you want to learn? Oh, like I do a lot of zirconia crowns for pediatric patients. So like I teach all of our doctors, we have a course on like how to incorporate that in your practice, how to provide this amazing service. And like to Tim's point, we have other doctors who do frenectomies, and so they can teach our other doctors. And so being in this cohort of people who are experts in these different areas of pediatric dentistry allows, our doctors to focus on, or do they want to incorporate some orthodontics in their practice? So like, what are the parts of dentistry that they're passionate about and want to do and just haven't had the time to do it? And so we see a lot of our people, that join the group are like, okay, now I can add this other service that I've been really wanting to do, but just haven't had the time to incorporate or the wherewithal to like figure out how to buy, the best laser or buy the whatever. So we can help them, get those negotiated rates, get the systems in place to incorporate that and do it seamlessly for them.
And to your point, they have the time now to go in and seek out that CE opportunity, whether it's within the group or externally.
Yeah.
And 100%. My favorite thing, and I say this to everybody, we have a partner doctor up in Michigan, amazing, Dr. Casey Stark. And she told me, she said, my big hobby is reading books. And she goes, since I've joined Alcan, I've been able to read 37 books this year. And I was like, if that doesn't like elucidate the work-life balance that we've created, that's a perfect example. And it is very rewarding to see that we've been able to create something like that.
Yep. Oh, that's going to make you feel good, because we talk a lot about technology, operations, processes. If you guys had a magic wand and you could make one headache that sits in dentistry operationally just disappear, what would that be?
I think the default answer for most people would be people, the employees, and I don't think that's fair. I think for the most part in dentistry, we have not given our team members enough opportunity to shine and to really be contributing members of the team. We've kind of relegated them to second tier citizenry in the dental practice. So I don't think that's a fair answer. I would say more than anything, just from an operational standpoint, the inefficiencies that exist in dental benefits today is just egregiously out of control and intentionally so. And so that's something that we focus on every day. How do we use technology to circumvent and overcome the obstacles that these dental benefits companies are constantly throwing up at us?
You would hope AI would help with that, but I feel like it might do the opposite too. If like they're going to also just use AI to figure out other ways to not tell us what our patients' benefits are or help us, make that process easy. So it's really frustrating. And private insurance, Medicaid, like there's just all the groups are just making it really difficult for patients to get the care that they need. And these are, and utilize their benefits that they already have. And so it's really, that is like one of the most frustrating, but also people is what I was saying.
So there's two things you'd wait this one for. I mean, what do you think would solve either of those in the future? Like if you again pull that crystal ball out.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. We're working on some AI solutions. We've brought in adult education theory experts into our practices to develop a learning system and a learning theory for the generation of dental professionals that we're now employing to kind of help train them up. Our goal being to, again, create a career out of dentistry. It's not just a job. Dental assisting is not just a job. All of our people get PPO health insurance. They get 18 days paid time off for matching 401k. It's a career, right? And so being able to pull people out of customer service, pull the person with the amazing attitude out of the hostess stand and put them in a dental practice and allow them to thrive and show them a career path where they can have a true career. I think that's how we fix the people problem, right? First and foremost. Any ideas on the insurance problem, Dan?
Well, no ideas over here, but I love what you're doing. You guys are pretty modest there. I mean, so it sounds like you're actively working on a solution on the people side. I mean, that's remarkable to hear. So we're going to shift gears here. Let's go into like just a quick fire just to get to know Tim and Alex a little bit better. So what's your go-to way to disconnect? 'Cause it sounds like you guys are really busy. So when you clock out for the day,
Can I say
what do you do?
No, we do.
Fine wine.
Fine wine.
Fine wine. It makes it sound more sophisticated. Like we're not just total lushes. It's
No, we have two little kids. So we have a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And so mine, like, it's blocked out in the calendar. You know, like I get home at from 6 to 7:30. I like to put my phone away. I don't even like, you know, I just want to be with our kids. And so that's like definitely the time that's like sacred in our house of we're here with the kids. I want to spend, you know, just not that much time that we get to spend with them because we work a lot, you know, so it's like, that's definitely my unwinding time when I get home is just like being with them and playing with them. And then we have a glass of wine after they go.
yeah, I mean, you know, we joke about it and I still think the answer is true to this day. The longest that we have gone without having a conversation about the business, right, whether it be at work or in our personal lives, was we took our first vacation after starting the practice. We worked 2 years straight, like just nonstop, 7 days a week, not a day off. And we took a 5-day vacation to Costa Rica to celebrate our wedding anniversary. And I think we were hanging out in the hot tub and we went like 3 hours without talking about the business. And I think still to this day, that record stands as the longest we've gone without bringing something up. So, and we joke about it, like this is, it's, for better or worse, who we are and what we enjoy doing, right? Like this is what we've created and we're proud of it and we're excited to continue doing that, right? It's not like woe is us, we work so much. But we also we know that not everybody is like that. And not everybody has a screw loose like we do. So like being able to take that and like, that's our cross to bear, shouldn't be everybody who works for us cross to bear. So I think that's also been, pretty important.
We have a family RVs. You know, we try and like be intentional about like we'll have a weekend that we take the kids in the RV somewhere fun, and you know, so we try and like get these little pockets of time that we can unwind, and we still talk about the business, but at least we're like doing it somewhere else. And
sure, but you come back refreshed, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Fitness too. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Like just maintaining that. For me, that's super important. We, you know, like wellness programs for the entire team. Very important.
Oh, that's amazing. So you bundle that in for the employees as well, too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys give back a lot. I mean, I've heard you touch on it a few times. Like, what else do you do in the community personally or through LCAN to give back to those that are supporting your business?
It's our passion project and something that we just started to give back to our community. But in 2021, we were donated a dental van from St. David's Foundation. They're one of the largest dental nonprofits in the country. We branded it Kids to Team Outreach, and it became basically a 501c3 where we go to underserved elementary schools and provide free dental care to kids in need. And so we have doctor volunteers in the community. And so like even like pediatric dentists down the street that would like technically be considered competition, like they'll come volunteer on the van. You know, general dentists in the area come volunteer on our van. And so we just partner with these elementary schools, get the kids, you know, out of the classroom. Some of these kids don't even have a toothbrush. So we like, you know, give them a hygiene bag. We do their cleaning. A lot of them have like facial swellings or abscesses. And so we have a nitrous tank on the van, 2 full dental chairs. And so we can provide the treatment that they need, and it's all free. And so we've donated over $500,000 of pre-dental care since 2021 when we started. And so that's like our biggest way to give back, something that we love and we're like really passionate about. And so we just need to figure out how to like write grants and do stuff to like help get it paid for, because right now we just rely, like we just have self-funded it.
I joke for us, so far it's been easier for us to write a check than write a grant proposal.
Right. Yeah.
But as the program continues to grow, we want it to become bigger than ourselves. And but we've partnered with the University of Texas Pre-Dental Society. They provide all of our volunteer labor. Partner with doctors in the community, these amazing clinicians that volunteer. Shutting down, people don't understand shutting down an office for a day for a dentist. That's $5,000 to $10,000
that they're donating of their time.
Yeah, totally. So it's been really cool. But just, for me, being a diehard capitalist at heart and going through business school, not ever thinking I would end up in the pediatric dental space, and then to have this program that every time I go on there is just, it's so rewarding from a personal standpoint. So that's,
And then obviously you guys donated the software to the van, and then Jazz Sensors donated sensors. And we have like some really great people that we partner with that help us make this happen too. So we really, and then it's cool because we have a Starlink out there, so you can just use our practice management software out on the van at whatever schools we're at.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, what a great way to give back. I mean, it sounds like it charges you as well too, to like go back the next day almost, right? you're doing all this good out there.
You can actually see, it's that immediate gratification where you can see the good you're doing, and the fact that it's all free and there's no strings attached is just a really fun. And we're also starting.
You're going to say the opposite of this.
Okay,
we're starting.
So our community of Buda, which is where we live and it's where we started our first practice, is really, it's just that it's a community, right? And it's been really fun to be a part of that and support other small businesses and everything. But every time we'd walk down Main Street with the kids, we'd go, God, we got a great bar here. We got great restaurants here.
Coffee shop.
Shop.
Super cute spot to walk around.
No ice cream store. Yeah. And it's like your quintessential classic old Main Street, 150-year-old building.
Oh, yeah. It's got to have just ice cream shop.
Got to have an ice cream
shop,
shop, right?
Yeah. One would think.
And so we kept joking. We're like, we're just going to start our own if nobody starts one. And I was on the Chamber of Commerce board, and somebody reached out to me and they were like, hey, we've got a guy who's a philanthropic entrepreneur around here who's redoing an old building. And do you want to talk to him about the ice cream store? Like, why not? Like, just sure we do. So one thing led to another, and now we're starting an ice cream shop in Buda, Texas.
Yeah.
So we come down on the weekend, we can see Tim and Alex serving ice cream,
scooping up ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah, the kids, your job in high school, you can either like go scoop ice cream or you can run sterile. So like when this is our kids,
you have options for
why exactly.
So what's one book, podcast, or resource that has helped shape you in the way you lead?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. I feel like we have a lot of books that we recommend to our team. I always love the Creating Magic, the Disney book. Orlando said also is fitting. We were talking about the Let Them book last night.
Oh yeah. Dinner last night. Let Them.
It's really hard to just let them, but I feel like that's not about leadership. More it's like yourself. We're not good about listening to podcasts. I need to get better about just like listening to that in the car.
Yeah, I mean, what was the one we did with Chris and Andy? That's actually like listening to stuff from overseas, right? And in different parts of the world to kind of get that global perspective on, some of the stuff that we're doing. Like, hey, you feel like we don't have it figured out, but then you see other parts and you're like, okay, well, we've got this pretty well figured out, right? Compared to other parts of the world. And then there's some great ideas coming out of there as well. There it's like, hey, we need to be doing that because they're taking a fresh look at it and they don't have all this baggage of because we've always done it this way that we do over here. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's been very beneficial. Books, Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
Certainly you talk about leadership style. That's one for us. For me, I always recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a, super old book, but still it stands the test of time for sure.
Yep.
What about you?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, for me, I love Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
Great storyteller, right? I mean, it's that's what I try to look for in a book. I mean, you want to stay engaged, but sometimes you're talking about negotiating and get a little boring, right? They talk about the philosophy side of it, et cetera. But then when you start to wrap in, we're negotiating with terrorists, right, to get a hostage back, it makes it a little bit more exciting, something a little bit more consumable. Listen to Jeb Blunt, his podcast every once in a while. He's a sales coach. Super awesome. He'll do some short bits. Like this week he did it on, we might be shifting into a new economy, right? And we're going to have to up our game. You might be doing some recession selling. It's just a 6-minute episode, so you could consume it really quick. Sent it to the team. They loved it.
Yep.
I'm kind of a podcast junkie. There's so many of them that I'll listen to. But those are a couple of my favorites. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you guys being super open about, the challenges, the wins, the losses. But before we go, when you look back at what you've done so far with Alcan and your members and what you've built today, what makes you the most proud?
Our outreach program for me, and just the doctors that have joined Alcan. Again, it's hard the first few months. Like there is so much change, but for them to reflect like 6 months or a year later and see how far they've come and just like, just those thank yous and, those little moments I feel like have been impactful for me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the outreach program and the fact that we've created an organization that can fund something like that, right, is pretty neat. But yeah, I would definitely say the satisfaction that we get from the doctors, because you're always, the dentists by nature are skeptical because they've been taken advantage of so much. Every salesman, every person who has a new thing, they're knocking on dentist doors because they know it's typically been an easy source of cash in the past. So dentists have become cynical and skeptical. Skeptical is healthy, cynical is not, right? And so dentists, when they join, even after getting to know us, it's like, well, can that really be true, or is this really going to work? And then seeing that transformation, right, 6 months, a year down the road, when their team is now great and they're getting to read their books, right, and have that work-life balance, and just seeing that, like, the stress lines start to recede from their face is probably, like, for me over the past year at least, 7 or 8 years coming to fruition in this vision that we've had. It's been really cool.
Yeah, that sounds rewarding. That is awesome. Well, thanks again, Tim, Alex, and everybody listening. That's it for this episode of The Doers, where we share the stories behind working, the wins, and the lessons learned from leaders in the trenches, building dental practices, businesses in dentistry. Thank you for listening, and follow us for future conversations if you liked what we heard today with Tim and Alex.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.